Hey guys, welcome to the BuiltLean podcast. I'm Mark Perry, the creator of BuiltLean, which helps busy men with demanding careers get lean, strong, and function fit with exceptional vitality. And so today I have James Larsen with me. And so James is a classmate of mine from Yale. We both graduated in 2004, and he is a hospitality executive at Caesars Entertainment, where he's been for several years, and he's currently pursuing a PhD in hospitality management. And so James reached out to me in August 2019 when he recently hit his highest body weight ever, and he knew he wanted to make a change. And so we had a conversation about his current situation and what he wanted to achieve, and he decided to sign up for the BuiltLean Transformation Program, and he ended up achieving a really dramatic body transformation, and he's lost over 50 pounds. And not only has he achieved results, but he's sustained them. It's been a while. So with all that said, James, I'm super grateful that you are taking the time out of your day to have this call, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Mark. It's great to interact with you in a way that you are live instead of listening to you at least 3 days a week. So it's wonderful to be here.
Cool. So I guess starting out, I'd love to kind of dive a little bit into your background, right? I mean, you were a lightweight crew athlete. We were both athletes, right, in college. And I mean, you were a very fit 170 for a long time. And so I'm curious, I mean, if you could say what happened, right? Like what created this, how did you gain 50 pounds? I mean,
slowly. Gradually, and then I woke up and all at once it was there, right? Yeah. So back in my athlete days, back when I was rowing, I was right around 160 for most of the time.
Wow. Okay.
And I was fine being there, of course, but just over time, when you're no longer in an environment where exercise becomes not only something that you enjoy doing, but something that you feel like you have an obligation to other people to do as well. Once that fell out after college, I just didn't pursue it anymore, right? And I got to the point where I was enjoying life's gustatory pleasures, probably a little bit too much, without taking into account the toll that it was taking on my health. And because it was such a gradual process too of gaining all that weight, it's like, if you just fast forward from 170 to 210, I would recognize the difference right away, right? But because it was so gradual over so many years, I just didn't realize the creep that was there.
Right.
And I was at my doctor's office one day, probably about a week before I contacted you, as a matter of fact. And he said, you're just not healthy right now. And I was on cholesterol medication as well. And perhaps most disturbingly, I had a vitamin D deficiency too, which is just meaning that I wasn't spending enough time outdoors in the sun because I had an office job, and I still have an office job too. So that conflation of factors and just being met with it head on, of being in my late 30s and on medicine for my health and on supplementation for when I should have just been spending time outside, made me realize that I need to take serious stock of what I'm getting out of my life now, the lifestyle that I'm leading, and whether I'm happy. And I did have a bit of a breakdown, following that appointment with my doctor, in the car. And I went into the car and said, I think this is the lowest point of my health that I want to be in. So it's time to take action on this. And that's when I started looking into a few different programs that I could do. And what was most concerning to me was that the previous November, so this was in August when I spoke to you, the previous November, I had run a marathon. I had set a goal to run in the Las Vegas Marathon where I live, and I did, and I finished it. And I was still running for a while, and then I realized, and then it dawned on me that it was not sustainable just to keep running at that pace. And what was missing from doing all that running was a relationship with eating and a relationship with food that wasn't healthy. I wasn't paying enough attention to that. So I was exercising, but I wasn't really watching what I was eating. And because that part wasn't there, I wasn't getting the results that I thought I should be getting for, logging so many miles every single week. And that's part of the conversation that you and I had. And part of my concern was the idea of wanting something that was sustainable. And, here we are all this time later. And if it wasn't sustainable, I wouldn't still be doing it. So
right.
that part of my concerns was laid to rest, I think, after I was, a good 6 months into BuiltLean.
Cool. And so, well, first of all, I really appreciate that overview. And can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you were experiencing kind of as the weight kind of kept on creeping up and up and up? And it sounds like, I mean, the exercise, you've been pretty dedicated, but still the weight kept on coming. It seems like, in large part from the eating. So you can talk about a little bit about some of the challenges you were experiencing?
Sure. So I think the main challenge was a mental block, and it was, what is my relationship with food and what is my relationship with eating, right? And my boyfriend he's a very good cook. I'm a pretty good cook too,
Right.
and we're both better bakers than we are cooks too. So there's always food in the house that is just like delicious. And what I realized when I started logging what it was that I was eating was that I just didn't realize how many calories were in all of the foods that I was eating. So if I was going out and running 6 miles, then coming home and having 2 slices of the cake that was downstairs, that was defeating the whole purpose of burning those calories. And so recognizing the relationship between food giving me energy and just food being pleasure, right, was certainly something that I had to come to terms with. What is interesting now is that because I have done so much experimenting with the foods that I eat and the calorie content of everything, over time, I've tried different methods of eating. I've tried having several small meals throughout a day. I've tried going for like 2 meals throughout the day, following like the various meal recommendations that were part of BuiltLean as well. And the routine that I'm into right now is what's working best for me. And that's having several small meals over the course of the day, because I find that when I am hungry, there are just like go-to meals and go-to snacks that are there for me. And I know that they're healthy and nutritious. And the fact that I've already prepared them removes that part of the decision-making process that would otherwise consume me in this, like, not paralysis, but a sensation of, what do I do now? I'm standing in front of the refrigerator. What do I eat given what it is that I just accomplished through exercise, or what's going to make me feel best? And just through logging how I was feeling and what I was eating, I found those meals that were best for me. And by removing the decision-making process of having to figure out what I'm going to eat at any given time, I think has really taken a lot of the guesswork out of my calorie consumption, and really allowed me to focus in on thinking what is going to give me the best return in consuming these calories, while also satisfying me from a nutritional standpoint and from a just enjoyable standpoint too, because food is still pleasant. It's still a pleasure for me. It is still something I really enjoy. I've been a food and beverage professional for since college, so more than 15 years at this point. Good food and good wine are always going to be a part of my professional life, and likely of my lifestyle too. And getting those ideas to meld with each other, I think, was the most recent breakthrough that I had.
Okay, cool. And so, can you? I guess when you let me just think here. So,
Sure.
What did you enjoy most about the program?
Oh yeah, the part about the program that was so great was that it met the need for me of being sustainable. Because when I was running 6 days a week most of the time. And they were hours, right, upon hours. Like when you're doing a marathon and like your long run of the week is, somewhere between 15 and 20 miles. This is like a lot of time, right? Whereas with BuiltLean, going forward and having a dedicated 3 days of 30 minutes just made it so much better because it didn't feel like an obligation. It felt like I can do this in 30 minutes and really enjoy what is happening. And it has a set time at the end, of course, too, right? The routine of it all, understanding that basically all of the workouts followed the same format and I knew exactly what I was getting into, allowed me not only to adapt myself to that schedule, but also to visualize it all the time too. So because it was already in my mind and it was finite and small and digestible, I was able to process it as something that I would enjoy doing and actually look forward to, rather than seeing it as something that was, monumental and huge. Like because it's short, it makes it, or made it feel like it was accomplished and it was done, and I would look forward to the next one. It's that being able to visualize it, I think really, really helped. And that's just because it is routine based, that visualization helped me substantially, I think.
Cool. And so can you talk a little bit about, I guess, some of the other components? Because I remember you writing, and by the way, last night I read over 44 pages of notes, which is basically all the notes you included in the scoreboard. So just for people listening, we have a weekly scoreboard, which is basically, you put in your weight, you put in your notes, like, how you did. And James was basically a rock star from the very beginning, right? So he was at 214, right? I think that was your starting weight. And then he had a pretty huge drop right in the beginning. But anyways, he kept notes almost every single time, right? And so in one of your notes, you mentioned how having, kind of looking at your goals twice a day was helpful. So are there any other components that were helpful?
Yes. So each time, one of the things that I've enjoyed as well is that looking at, of course, the initial transformation period was 12 weeks, right? So it's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, each one lasting for 4 weeks, and having a focus that was 12 weeks allowed me to have a goal that was achievable within 12 weeks, and also always see the light of what I was working toward to. And now each time I end a 12-week cycle, my BuiltLean binder is out of arm's reach, unfortunately, right now, but it's right there. I can see it. I reread all of that material each time before I restart a 12-week cycle. And the goals that are in there, the 5 goals that I'm going to be working on, or the 1 goal and the 5 reasons for it, they're not only in my binder, but they're also on my bathroom mirror, right? The great thing about mirrors is that they're actually dry erase boards too. So on my mirror, like in my bathroom, the top left corner has the 5 reasons why I work out, and right below that is the goal, and right below that is a little chart that has it says the tops are phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And each time I finish a week, I just check it off. So I always know exactly where I am in that 12-week cycle and how I'm pacing towards that goal for that period as well. So having those visual reminders and returning to the reasons and not just the goal, I think keeps me on track and always brings those ideas in my head of why I'm doing what I'm doing to the forefront. So it's not focusing exclusively on the what, but on the why as well. And those reasons have carried me through many weeks when I thought things were getting difficult. So they were wonderful.
Cool. And so I actually wanted to ask, so you're kind of bringing up some of the challenges. So most guys, right, who I think this is fair to say that most guys who kind of get into training and exercise and eating well, they fall off, right? It's kind of the on again, off again wagon, right? It's just this, it's challenging to be consistent. And so in week 8 at 193, you said in regards to possibly needing to buy new clothes, this is an interesting stat. You said, this is in week 8. I'm not psychologically prepared for my new body. I fear that I'm going to backslide and gain the weight back. So talk to me about that, and talk to, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I remember, I don't remember if it was in talking to you or reading what you had written, possibly both. You did talk about the idea of people, saying a few things that weren't always positive, or right, saying something that was positive and it coming off in a different way. And there were a few people who would comment like, "Yeah, you're slimming down here. It's like, are you, it's like you're about to blow away, or it's like, you looked better with a few more pounds." And it's like, well, my appearance really isn't any of your concern, but thank you for noticing. That's a good thing here. But what I was most concerned about was that there would be a day when I would just want to order pizza and then eat the whole pizza. And in my mind, having a day like that, I would not go from 190 to 190.5 or to 191. I would go all the way back up to 214, right?
Right.
And that idea was at the forefront of my mind often when that sort of temptation came in. And what I learned to do was to recognize how I was feeling, acknowledge it rather than push it down or push it to the side, and just recognizing how I was feeling at that time when those sorts of emotions were creeping in, right? How was I hungry? Was I angry? Was I lonely? Was I tired? All those sorts of things. And I realized that as long as I acknowledged how I was feeling and what those emotions were, I was able to work through them, and that feeling of hunger wasn't truly hunger a lot of the time. It was something else that was manifesting as wanting to eat something. It's the psychological part of this, of course, right? And I still deal with that. I deal with that, not on a daily basis anymore, but fairly frequently. And sometimes I go to the mirror in my bathroom when I feel that way. I just look at myself and I see what I've accomplished, and I come back to those reasons, and it gets me back on track. And that's how I've dealt with it. Another breakthrough that I had, because you brought up the part that I wrote about clothing and everything too, was that it's a big commitment to say, like, all of these clothes that once fit me, that are here, that I own, no more. That's not who I am anymore. I've got to get something that like actually fits. And I was worried that if I got a new wardrobe and I backslid, then I would feel even worse, and it would send me into this other spiral. And I've just been open about those feelings, and I've shared them with other people and just talked through them, and that's what's made me feel better, and it helped me to get all through it, and I feel much better about it now.
Awesome, man. Well, again, I think it's you had a absolutely monster transformation, and the photos were just shocking. They really are. They're just unbelievable. And so a couple things. So at times you had a very heavy travel schedule, right? You had a lot of challenges come up. And so can you talk about how you continued to get results and how you sustain them all through some, hectic times and travel schedule?
Yeah, definitely. I have to travel for work frequently. And I have had to travel safely during this period of public health concern. And most of the places where I travel to, the gyms are not open at the hotels, right, and that is fine. because one of the things that is great about the program is that there are workouts that don't involve weights. There are workouts that are all about body weight instead. So like the Inception workout, I enjoy a lot.
Right.
I actually don't like lifting weights very much. I don't really like lifting weights very much. So anything that is body weight, I love. I absolutely love it. And just doing squats is like a fantastic workout as well. So I did a lot with, I did the Inception workout many times. And and it's still really enjoyable too. So that's how I got through that part of the actual working out. And then when it came to eating while traveling, which is a big concern as well, in the beginning, it was more difficult than I thought it was going to be, just because there aren't always the healthy options that you're seeking out, or the options that are both healthy and tasty, right? And I found myself eating like a lot of salads, and then I realized like this is not as satisfying as I wanted to be. And so I just got more. I kind of like worked up the courage in like restaurant environments to talk about like, can I have, the dressing on the side, or can you make this with X ingredient instead of Y ingredient, and things like that. And most of the time people are really accommodating when it comes to those sorts of requests. And in the most recent past, when I've been traveling, I've actually brought the amount of protein powder with me that I think I'm going to, that I know that I'm going to consume over like a 5-day travel period, right? And continuing to not only do meal planning, but meal scheduling over the travel time has helped me a lot. And because I already was tracking everything that I was eating, it just made it like easier to hold myself accountable to how I was treating myself during those travel periods. It all comes back to the idea of just awareness not only of the foods that I'm consuming, but also what my output is in terms of how I've exercised. And because I'm in that routine of logging what I eat and logging all of my exercise, when there is a gap there, it pops out at me on my schedule. And I know that if I can do this when I'm at home, it's like still leading a pretty busy life, I should be able to do it while I'm traveling too. And the realization is that the environment is really inconsequential when it comes to what I'm going to do, because it's really all in my mind. Like, I'm going to figure out how to get in the workout and how to eat healthy. I just need to be conscious about it. And that's how I've worked it out while traveling.
What you just said is really powerful, because that's one of the biggest challenges. Is usually the organism is like a product of the environment, right? But you're just kind of risen above that. You're just like, hey, like, it doesn't matter what the environment's going to be like. I know what I need to do. I know it's important to me, and I'm going to make it happen. So that's phenomenal. And by the way, in terms of the tracking, so like as part of the BuiltLean program, as you know, we have the eating log, which is kind of morphed into more of like a daily habit tracker. But basically, you kind of in literally a minute or two a day, as you know, it just takes a few seconds to just figure out, okay, like, what are you eating? It sounds like you shifted that to focus on more detailed tracking. And I'm kind of curious, like, how it sounds initially like just some of the basic tracking helped you shift that relationship with food, and then you've kind of gone deeper. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I can. So when I was first going through the program and tracking the habits,
right?
That was fine. But I am both a qualitative researcher and quantitative researcher by training, right? So the qualitative aspect to saying like, well, was it a 1, was it a 2, or was it a 3? Well, it's like, I don't fully understand what the scale is right now. So I had to quantify it so that I could understand what is a what is a behavior that is promoting my health versus what is a behavior that is not promoting my health? What is a behavior that is helping me get towards my goals versus what is a behavior that is counterproductive to my goals here? And because I am quantitatively focused, it was when I was actually logging everything, including calories, including, right. I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm looking at like grams of protein and grams of fat and sugar and right. fiber and carbohydrates and everything. That helped me put it into perspective of being able to evaluate what I'm putting into my body by understanding the numbers that are behind all of that. And I think that's just because by nature, I respond better to quantitative analysis than I do to holistic qualitative analysis. So I needed that. I needed that because my mind works in a way such that I needed to process the numbers behind it, right? If the numbers were all adding up, then I was on the right track to achieve my goals. If they weren't, then I was not, then I was engaging in behavior that was counterproductive to the result that I wanted to see. So for me, that's how it ended up. That's how it ended up working. I'm a researcher and data guy by nature too. So I went out there and I read a lot about nutritional science to ensure that what I was doing was data driven and was backed up by the most recent research and recommendations there. And they had to be adapted in a way that was in line with my goals and with the lifestyle that I wanted to live.
Okay, cool. And so I think that was interesting to me is when you first started, within the first kind of few weeks, number one, you started getting results right away. But number two, you were like, you had the mindset of like, oh, you might do this more than one round. So a lot of guys who do the program, they kind of are within striking distance of their goal within 12 weeks. And they're just like, okay, I'm just going to go through 12 weeks and done. Whereas you thought about it as like doing 1 round and 2 rounds. You've done multiple cycles of the program, right? Mm-hmm. Which to help you achieve the results you have gotten. So can you talk about like what led to that decision or how you approached it going in?
Sure. Well, it was in the first conversation that you and I had, and I said, is this 12 weeks or is this like forever? Like what exactly is the program all about? And you said, well, it's what you want it to be. It's like, well, if I want to be healthy for 12 weeks, I guess this is fine. But that's not what I'm looking for. Like I was looking for a lifestyle change, and this is BuiltLean has just become like a part of that lifestyle. And again, coming back to the idea of being quantitatively focused, right? It's if you follow the recommendations of what you were saying to do in terms of the exercise and in terms of the eating, then it's about a 1% drop in body weight per week, right? So, I mean, that's really easy to do. So, being the Excel guy that I am, I just chug through those numbers, right? And just put it in the formula. And so like, well, if I stay on this for 20 weeks, then I'll be at, my body weight multiplied by 0.99 raised to the 16th power, whatever week I was getting to. And I just kept saying, it's like, oh, that seems even more desirable than where I am right now. And to get there, all I have to do is keep doing what I'm doing right now. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stay on that. And because going through all of the goal planning and the inventory of reasons and the whole introductory part where you're introducing a program, because I found that so interesting the first time around, I thought I can probably get something new from this each time I go through it. And that's what I have found. So even though I'm reading the same material at the start of each 12-week cycle, I'm taking something else from it and almost having that as the mantra to carry me through the next 12 weeks. And so that becomes the focus, right? So I always have my reasons and I always have a goal for that 12-week period. But the part of the program that I'm going to concentrate on is going to be different based on what jumps out at me from the material at that time.
Cool. And so I think you're referring to so I wrote the essentials guide, right? So it's like I boiled down like my entire lifetime of like training and like, I guess 10 plus years of coaching and doing, I guess I've written hundreds of articles at this point on BuiltLean, but like I reduced that down into that little, the essentials packet to kind of help, like, which is cool, like to help guys focus on like, okay, there are a million things you can think about. Like, let's just focus on these things and like internalize it. And what's really cool is that you internalize it and you're living it, right? I think that's what's so powerful about it. So like, again, super huge kudos to you. And so, can you talk a little bit more about the results you've achieved? I mean, it's really a dramatic shift, right? Like you see the photo of you before, you're like, you don't even look like the same person. It's like, who is that guy? You don't even no, but really it's a shock. It's like a really stark contrast. So can you talk a little bit more about like the results you have achieved, maybe kind of throughout, or just how you feel now versus when you started?
Sure. Mentally, I feel much lighter. Physically, I obviously am much lighter. But one thing that's great is that I haven't just like dropped fat, like I've gained muscle like substantially too, right? So I still run. I still run pretty often to get my steps throughout the course of each day, right? And one thing that's really cool is that I can see the difference in just how my body feels when I'm running too, right? So it's like all the lifting is great, and like you look yourself in the mirror, you're like, yeah, I think I look a little bit better now than I used to, and I feel a hell of a lot better. But that also translates to how I feel when I'm doing other physical activities now too, right? Like so now when I go out and run in the morning, I feel like there's an extra like spring in my step too. There's something else there that just wasn't before, and that's the increased strength. Like my body is able to move much better than it was before. So not only is there a reward from looking at my body and being like, oh, that is way healthier than I've been in years, but also the physical manifestation of just how I feel whenever I'm doing anything that is athletic now too. I mean, it's like when I'm doing the actual like BuiltLean routine. So whether it's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, or whether it's, the Python workout or steel or whatever it might be, the workouts on demand. Those are like working, like, I feel like my big muscles, right? Like the ones that I see when I'm in the mirror, right? The flexibility part of it, though, is working on like all those other muscles that are like the stabilizer muscles, right? It's like everything else that is smaller and all through your body, right? So like when I'm out there and when I'm running, it's like, if you talked to me 2 years ago when I was out there, like I might be tripping. I might, roll an ankle like every now and again, right? And that's terrible because it just puts me back farther. But now I can feel like the smaller muscles in my feet and in my ankles responding to everything that's going on out there too. So the reason why I bring this up is because the physical transformation is great. I feel so much better, right? But also my body just works better in ways I didn't expect it to be working before. And I think that's from concentrating not only on the strength and aerobic parts of the program, but also focusing in on like the flexibility part. It's also understanding that a lot of the stretching that happens at the end of the workout is influenced like by yoga. So I got reinterested in yoga again too, right? And that's all like making the stretching part of BuiltLean. It allows me to focus on like, what am I feeling in my body right now? And how do I make the most out of these 30 minutes, right? Like I shouldn't just feel this like in my quadriceps and my back and shoulders and chest, but there are also so many other parts of my body that I need to be aware of too. So the increase in body awareness, I think, has also become a big part of how I feel now. And I think that's the connection between my physical self and my mental self. And when those two are in sync, that's when I feel the best.
Awesome, man. I mean, your mind body connection is certainly quite different now than when you started.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And so, yeah, I mean, in your testimonial, right? Like, you created a testimonial. You said like the biggest transformation has been mental, and it's a different way of, looking at myself and valuing myself. Can you kind of talk maybe a little bit more about that?
Yeah, yeah. It comes back to the idea that the physical part of the program has not been the hardest part. Like, it just hasn't, right? It's like the hardest rep is not the last one, it's the first one, right? Because after you do one, you want to do another, and you want to do another after that, and you want to do another after that. It's like the most difficult physical motion that might happen is actually just like pressing play on the workout and starting from there, right? Because like once it's there, you're like, this is 30 minutes. Like, of course I can do this, right? And I think as long as that mental piece is there, any of the physical part is going to follow, because it just becomes it becomes a ritual, right? It's like, this is where I do my BuiltLean routine. So I am here now. I have pressed play. This is going to continue, and that is part of just like the ritual that I think makes the actual physical side of it so much easier to start, easier to complete, and easier to sustain over the life of however long you want to be doing it. And because I just continue to feel better and better, I'm going to keep it up.
Nice, man. That's awesome. And so, I'm curious. I mean, is there anything else you'd like to mention? I mean, obviously we've talked, about the eating, we've talked about lifestyle, we've talked about transformation. Is there anything else you'd like to mention about like the program, about your results, or anything else?
Yeah, I could have started sooner. I could have started the program sooner because I knew that it was out there. And so like the act of just starting it was pretty big in and of itself, right? Because it was saying, hey, James, I'm making this commitment to you, right? I had to say that in the mirror, like to myself. It's like, we're doing this together, right? It's like, we're in this, right? And I just have to come back to that point over and over again. And in the first conversation that you and I had, if you hadn't said like, it would be good to start this, like, it sounds like you're ready to do it, I don't know if I would have. I think it might have still have been in the back of my head, and I would have continued to just, run myself to exhaustion over and over again without addressing the other components that I think the program really excels at if you embrace it. And it is the fact of go back and read the essentials, right? Go back and revisit your reasons. Like, I see my reasons, my 5 reasons every day because they're on my mirror, right? And every 2 weeks I erase the whole mirror and I write it all up there again too, right? And I plan out what's going to happen. And I wish I had started sooner, because if I could have felt this way like several years ago, I probably would have had to convince myself that it was the right thing to do. But I would love to get a few years back and feeling as good as I do now.
Awesome, man. No, well, listen, man, I really appreciate, your time and taking, and really sharing some of your insights into this transformation. Because I mean, like I said, like when I saw the photos, I was like, oh my goodness, like this is, because it's like once you see the photo, it's just dramatic, right? It's like, it's just unbelievable. Yeah. So again, I'm super appreciative, and yeah, I obviously we'll be in touch. If you ever have any questions, man, just reach out, and enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy the holidays.
Thanks. And I would love to see more people in BuiltLean contributing to the scoreboard as well, because sometimes I get lonely on there. So I would love to follow other people's stories too.
I was gonna say, so I'm gonna, we're gonna have some new scoreboards coming up in the beginning of the year, and I'll keep you posted on it.
That'd be wonderful.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, again, enjoy the rest of the day. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, bye bye.